The artifact sat in the center of the Galactic Museum's most prestigious wing, encased behind quantum glass that could withstand a supernova's fury. Visitors from across the galaxy came to witness the legend, a suit of armor that had repelled every known species in the universe. The Zephyrians had tried to claim it and been hurled across star systems. The crystalline collective had attempted to absorb it and shattered into a million fragments. Even the mighty Vorthon Empire, conquerors of 3 galactic arms, had retreated in defeat after their greatest warriors were sent fleeing in terror. The armor itself was unremarkable in appearance, dull metallic plates that seemed to shift between silver and black depending on the angle of observation. Ancient runes covered its surface, pulsing with a faint blue light that suggested immense power contained within. Xenoarchaeologists estimated it to be over 50,000 years old. Predating most known civilizations, Dr. Kethvar, the museum's chief curator and a member of the scholarly Altarian race, often lectured visiting students about the armor's mysterious properties. "It chooses," he would say, his 4 eyes gleaming with academic fascination. "The armor evaluates each being that approaches and finds them wanting. No species has ever been deemed worthy." But Dr. Kethvar had never encountered humans. Captain Sarah Chen had arrived on Museum Station as part of humanity's first official diplomatic mission to the galactic core. As the newest members of the interstellar community, humans were treated with a mixture of curiosity and condescension by the older species. They were considered primitive, barely having achieved faster-than-light travel and certainly not worthy of the galaxy's greatest mysteries. Sarah had wandered into the armor exhibit purely by accident, having taken a wrong turn while searching for the diplomatic quarters. She stood before the display case, reading the translated information plaque with growing interest. "Fascinating," she murmured, her brown eyes studying the ancient artifact. 50,000 years old and still no one's figured out how to wear it. "Indeed," came a voice behind her. Dr. Kethvar approached, his tentacles writhing with excitement at finding someone genuinely interested in his prize exhibit. "In all my years of study, I have never encountered anything quite like it. The armor seems to possess a form of consciousness. It actively repels anyone who attempts to claim it." Sarah nodded thoughtfully. "What exactly happens when someone tries to put it on?" "The results vary by species," Dr. Kethvar explained, pulling up holographic records. The Zephyrians reported feeling overwhelming dread before being physically launched backward. The crystallines spoke of their molecular structure being disrupted. The Vorthons, well, their warriors rarely speak of their failures, but security footage shows them running in absolute terror. "Interesting." Sarah moved closer to the display case, her reflection mingling with the armor's shifting surface. "Has anyone considered that maybe the armor isn't rejecting these species because they're unworthy, but because they're approaching it wrong?" Dr. Kethvar's 4 eyes blinked in confusion. "I do not understand." "Well," Sarah said, crossing her arms, "every species you've mentioned is either naturally aggressive, like the Vorthons, or approaches things from a position of superiority, like trying to absorb or conquer the armor. What if the armor isn't looking for strength or dominance? What if it's looking for something else entirely?" Before Dr. Kethvar could respond, Sarah did something unprecedented. She placed her palm against the quantum glass barrier. The armor responded immediately. The blue runes flared to brilliant white, and the quantum glass began to resonate with a harmonic frequency that sent vibrations through the entire wing. Alarms blared as security systems detected the anomaly. "Step back!" Dr. Kethvar shouted, but Sarah remained motionless, her hand pressed against the barrier as if drawn by an irresistible force. The armor began to move. Slowly, deliberately, it turned its helmeted head toward Sarah. Then, in a display that defied every law of physics the museum's scientists understood, the armor began to phase through the quantum glass barrier. Security forces arrived as the armor completed its impossible escape from the containment field. Plasma weapons charged and aimed at the ancient artifact as it stood before the human diplomat. Dr. Kethvar ordered them to hold their fire, partly from scientific curiosity, partly from the knowledge that their weapons would likely prove useless. Sarah looked up at the armor, which towered over her by at least 2 feet. "Hello," she said simply. The armor knelt. Gasps echoed through the gathering crowd as the legendary artifact, which had repelled the greatest warriors and scholars of 100 worlds, lowered itself before a human who barely stood 5.5 feet tall. "I think I understand now," Sarah said, addressing both the armor and the stunned onlookers. Everyone who came before was trying to claim you, to master you, to use you. They saw you as a tool, a weapon, a prize to be won. She extended her hand toward the armor. But you're not a tool, are you? You're a guardian. And guardians don't serve conquerors, they serve protectors. The armor's helmet tilted slightly, and Sarah could swear she sensed approval radiating from within the ancient metal. Slowly, reverently, the armor began to disassemble itself, each piece floating gently through the air to settle around Sarah's form. The breastplate sealed against her chest with a satisfying click. The gauntlets slid over her hands like they had been crafted specifically for her measurements. The helmet settled over her head, and suddenly Sarah could perceive the universe in ways she had never imagined. Energy patterns, life signatures, the very fabric of space-time laid bare before her enhanced senses. But most importantly, she could feel the armor's purpose, ancient and unwavering, to protect those who could not protect themselves, to stand guard against the darkness between stars, to serve not as a weapon of conquest but as a shield for the innocent. Remarkable, Dr. Kethvar whispered, his academic mind reeling with the implications. 50,000 years it waited. 50,000 years of the galaxy's greatest civilizations attempting to claim it. And it chose a human. Sarah turned to face him, her voice unchanged despite the magnificent armor she now wore. Maybe that's exactly the point. Maybe it was waiting for a species that understood that true strength isn't about what you can take, but what you're willing to give up to protect others. As news of the event spread across the galaxy, it marked the beginning of a new understanding. Humanity, the species that every other civilization had dismissed as primitive and weak, had succeeded where all others had failed. Not through superior technology or overwhelming force, but through something far more powerful. The recognition that some things in the universe were too important to be conquered. The armor had found its guardian, and the guardian had found her calling.